Welcome to Inside Games, the only gaming news show brave enough to wonder what might happen if Microsoft decides they've blown enough money on this whole video game thing.
Yeah, they're about to drop a tidy almost $70 billion on acquiring Activision Blizzard. It's happening, by the way, more on that later. On top of all the other companies they've gobbled up in recent years. Sure, the acquisition spree has stocked Game Pass with a ton of great games, but where will all those studios go if Microsoft pulls the plug on Xbox in general?
Could we see a situation like we already are with Embracer Group, who acquired more than 70 studios, lost $2 billion in potential funding, and is currently on a layoff and studio closure spree?
Until now, or really until Embracer started throwing devs in the wood chipper, the question was largely academic, just kind of disquieting. But for once, we're not clickbaiting you. If Game Pass doesn't succeed, the Big M could get out of the video game business altogether.
The source for this is none other than Microsoft Gaming CEO Phil Spencer himself. That's right, the Spence Man. That's what I call him. So it's a real thing.
I'm in a sound effect mood. I hear a whip crack when I hear the Spence Man. This all came out of the Antitrust hearing with the U.S. Federal Trade Commission regarding Microsoft's acquisition of Activision Blizzard.
We actually weren't supposed to hear this either. These comments from Phil Spencer, in addition to tons of other tidbits about Xbox's business, all tumbled onto the internet last week, thanks to a mistaken upload from Xbox themselves.
Butterfingers on Google Drive. We've all been there. We'll cover the relevant news beats over the course of this episode, starting with the Game Pass comments. WCCF Tech reported that during a hearing, an FTC attorney showed Spencer an internal Microsoft slide that projected the growth of Game Pass over the next several years.
The slide predicted that Game Pass would surpass 100 million users between fiscal year 2029 and fiscal year 2030. That growth would come mostly from PC and cloud gamers.
Hey, that's not bad. That's a reasonable and modest expectation. That's just $1 billion every month. Surely you can afford to employ a studio or two, kick out a game every now and then on that. Right, Charlotte?
Wrong!
Oh, come on!
According to the Spence Man, that would not be nearly enough. Specifically, he said that the number of PC and cloud Game Pass subscribers would need to increase by much more. Here's a direct quote from Phil. "I can fairly safely say that if we do not make more progress than this off of console, we would exit the gaming business. If this were the outcome, we would. I don't believe we'd still be in business."
This is incredibly shocking. After all, Microsoft's been in gaming for decades. Game Pass is clearly a big investment. I think everybody knows that. With in-house AAA games like Starfield getting released day and date on the service, they obviously wanted to pay off and needed to pay off.
We've wondered for years just how far Microsoft's tolerance for spending will go. Apparently now we know, exactly till 2027.
So are they on track? We'll take a look at Xbox's X business and, of course, the Spence Man after this quick word from our sponsor, HelloFresh.
Today's episode of Inside Games is sponsored by HelloFresh, which can help you kick off a fresh fall routine. I've started a pretty good one with HelloFresh where I kind of time when I start cooking to when my partner's gonna get home from work. They do the hard part, you get to take all the credit. And since HelloFresh meals take a predictable amount of time to prepare, you can line it up pretty well. All right, pop quiz. You think you got it all figured out, but your partner just got a mannequin that they put in the passenger seat so now they can take the carpool lane. What do? Well, no problem. HelloFresh has you covered there. They have quick and easy recipes and 15-minute meals, so you can get a tasty dinner on the table in less time than it takes to get takeout or delivery, and look like a domestic god in the process. It's a new season, also calls for some new meals. HelloFresh has a fresh fall lineup of delicious dinners and more than ever to choose from. Take your pick from 40 weekly recipes that suit your dietary lifestyle, from veggie to family-friendly to fit and wholesome. We like our gamers fit and wholesome, don't we? So use our link in the description or go to HelloFresh.com and use code POGINSIDE50 for 50% off plus free shipping. Just click the link in the description or scan the QR code with your phone. Thank you very much for the support, HelloFresh, and for the brownie points. Thank you, HelloFresh, now that the Spence Man himself has set Xbox's sink or swim level at over 100 million Game Pass subscribers. Let's see how they're doing. A little check-in here. Charles, hit us with some numbers.
You got it. Expecting a whip crack for each figure. It's tough to say any numbers, though, specifically since we don't know any of them. Microsoft has said in the past that the service has 25 million subs, and others have found LinkedIn posts from Xbox employees indicating that it's now more than 30 million. We do know that Microsoft expected far more growth by this point. SEC filings from late 2022 show that Xbox missed their growth projections for 2 years in a row by wide margins. The graph itself projected around 45 million Game Pass subscribers for fiscal 2023, which ended in July. They obviously did not hit that.
It's not sounding great. Xbox needs more than 100 million subscribers to stay in the video game business, and they're not even on track to hit that.
Yeah, maybe this is starting to sound like a bad business arrangement. Well, we wouldn't really be the first ones to question that, especially on the internet. But some industry leaders have said something like Game Pass is just never going to work out.
Former PlayStation boss Sean Layden has said that Game Pass is unsustainable as a business model and would need around 500 million subscribers to justify the cost of AAA games. Okay, wow. And obviously 100 million subscribers is nowhere near that, which could be why Phil said they'd get out of gaming if the numbers were that low.
Here you go, Charlotte. I know that one hurts. 500 million also seems a bit excessive.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot. Unless Sean Layden is also baking in some very robust profit expectations. He throws out a budget of $120 million for a game at $17 a month for Game Pass. The service earns that money off of just 7 million subscribers every month.
Yeah, but that doesn't include profits. Or, I don't know, 500 million is a significant portion of the population of the Earth, right?
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
I imagine that would be a pretty awesome video game, though, if all that money poured into one.
I think that's just Star Citizen.
Yeah, right? They finally finished it. Star Citizen 1.0. Well, hey, let's come back to Earth for a minute. It's not like Microsoft is sleeping on a mattress in an empty studio apartment here. The freshly divorced Microsoft. No, we actually got a peek at their profitability numbers due to the aforementioned leak. Its gaming division earned $15.4 billion in revenue in fiscal 2023.
Comparatively, Sony's gaming division brought in revenue of more than $24.4 billion, and Nintendo reported revenue of about $10 billion.
So, everyone's making money, but is it enough? And the answer to that question is always no. It's never enough. The Spence Man commented that, quote, the Xbox business today runs at a single-digit profit margin. So Microsoft may have long-term profit expectations that the Spence Man is running out of time to deliver.
15 billion in revenue, single-digit profit margin would mean, about $1 billion a year. That seems like a wide bumper, but maybe not. But you got to spend money to make money, or you got to spend money to acquire all of your competitors and shut them down. That's usually the Microsoft way. And on that note, Microsoft's about to close on a huge $69 billion acquisition. You know the one we're talking about, so there could be an urgency in the coming years to get those profits up.
Of course, we are referring to the Activision Blizzard merger, which more and more looks like a done deal. Microsoft cleared another regulatory hurdle recently with the merger getting preliminary approval from a UK regulator, and some are now saying the acquisition is likely to close next month. And that means that Call of Duty will be coming to Game Pass, not to mention all the World of Warcraft and Candy Crush players could be potential Game Pass subscribers. I hope it's worth all the scandals that will come out eventually from that company.
Jeez. For Xbox Game Studios, that means wrapping Call of Duty, World of Warcraft, and Candy Crush under your revenues, which is pretty damn tidy. Activision Blizzard reported $7.53 billion in net revenue in 2022.
That gets them close to Sony territory as a company. So Activision wasn't the first company in Microsoft's crosshairs, though. They've considered lots of other big-name grabs in the past.
At one point, they were apparently considering buying Nintendo, with Phil Spencer calling it the prime asset for us in gaming. They also apparently looked at Square Enix and Sega, and just because they're buying doesn't mean anyone's selling, though. Capcom's CEO was recently asked at the Tokyo Game Show how he would respond to a Microsoft offer, and he said he'd gracefully decline.
Well, I wouldn't, so they want to buy me. I'm absolutely open for $7 billion or whatever.
Absolutely, yeah. Buy me out.
But who knows? Microsoft has deep pockets, and money has a way of not so gracefully making things happen.
I wonder who got the nice dinners over in the UK at the CMA. It's clear here that Microsoft's sinking a lot of resources into Game Pass, and sooner or later, they're going to want a big return on that investment. It's going to be us, all the humble gamers out there, Johnny Six Gamer, that are going to feel the squeeze.
The first warning squeeze was probably when they raised Game Pass's price leading up to Starfield's launch.
Just like I predicted. We have to assume that Starfield helped Game Pass numbers somewhat, but we have yet to see any congratulatory press release about the game's performance. Outside of those player numbers, I think it was 10 million.
Not bad. In the past, no news was bad news since companies would always brag if they had a reason to, but Microsoft has special reason to be demure about the size and success of their game launchers.
Yeah, they can't say that they're a tiny little company and they just need to acquire Activision over there, and then brag about getting 40 million Game Pass subscribers over there, but we'll see. Some of these leaks make it pretty clear that they're tinkering with other ways to drive up revenues as well, like the leaked digital-only Xbox Series X planned to launch in 2024. Because what better pair for an all-digital subscription service than a console that can't even play physical games?
Not much is really known about this aside from 2 terabytes of internal storage and what you can see in the slide. It's round, doesn't have a disk drive, which is weird because I feel like the disc would fit perfectly in a round, I don't know. And it comes with a new controller that incorporates some recent techno whatsits like precision haptic feedback and an internal accelerometer for lift to wake. You lift the controller up and it wakes, I think.
Cool. I hit a button on mine. And it may not happen at all. Xbox's Phil the Spence Man Spencer acknowledged the leaks in an X post, but coyly said so much has changed in the years since these leaked documents were created. Does that mean we won't get a digital-only Xbox Series X? They tried the digital-only thing before with the launch of the original Xbox One in 2013, and the move was so hated that they eventually reversed course, ditching any kind of online authentication.
Ironically, that just opened the door for Sony to not only sweep in with a pretty epic dunk, they made a pretty great meme video at the time, but since they've established a digital marketplace and have basically price control over it, and that's the major contributing factor to their current profits.
Some might say a monopoly.
Some have.
Yeah, some, Xbox clearly wants a revenue generator like Sony's little monopoly. They've just chosen to do it by selling access to hundreds of games instead of skimming revenue off of FIFA DLC. I'm sorry, EA Sports FC DLC.
One quick note before we get into our takes on all of this. Bear in mind that here Phil the Spence Man Spencer's testimony is to the Federal Trade Commission, who was at that moment attempting to block Xbox's acquisition of Activision Blizzard. He has an interest in portraying Microsoft as a small, struggling company to make this acquisition seem less threatening, which could have informed his speculative statements about the future and what Xbox might do. It's in his interest to make the business seem really tough and make these moves seem necessary. So that might have informed it. And you can't really get called out on perjury for saying that something might have happened, So anyway, just something to consider. Now to the hot takes. Do you see a future where, based on what Spencer said, do you see a future where Xbox leaves gaming? Microsoft's just done.
That's an excellent point about him kind of coloring his speech to get this through, because obviously he personally has a lot riding on this, as well as the company. So I'm sure it's in everyone's best interest that they go, oh, well, we might not even stay in video gaming if we don't acquire them. But I don't know, it's neat. It's been neat to watch this experiment play out, and oftentimes it's benefited, the consumer, with the day one availability on Game Pass and stuff. But the thing with such a big gamble like this is it kind of gets more and more worrying to see more and more developers and actual game makers get caught up in this grand experiment, because if he is speaking at least semi-earnestly, there is a chance, if this doesn't work out, this could crater Xbox as a brand, as an initiative within Microsoft. And then what happens to, all those studios that Xbox has been on a buying spree? And even if Xbox doesn't go away, but Phil Spencer does, a new person with more austerity type treatment of these developers could lead to much more similar to kind of what we saw with EA and all of the developers that were just destroyed. And it sucks to see them get all collected up and potentially they'll get caught in the crossfire in this big, gamble.
Charlotte is exactly correct. I don't think Xbox will leave gaming, at least in the next, I think Phil Spencer said 4 years, 5 years, whatever it was. To me, this is probably more like a 15 years down the line, because right now they're making profits. So as it goes with businesses, if the business doesn't make profit, they usually got 3 or 4 years of not making profit before they cut it. So they're still making a profit, and if they can continue to turn profits with Game Pass and all that other stuff, then they'll continue to do it. But Charlotte is right. There's a lot of developers caught in this crossfire that we're all genuinely worried about. With all the other stuff with Unity and, like you said, with Embracer Group and with EA, it's just I feel really bad for a lot of these developers, and our heart goes out to you.
But it could be great. I can see the strategy, and it's mega dependent on, I think, expanding, like Spencer said, like expanding Game Pass on PC in maybe non-US territories for now. And then it's also dependent on cloud gaming being the like foundation of the future of gaming, and then also Xbox Game Pass being the unavoidable purveyor of all games inside of that ecosystem. So they basically want to be the default for the future, which is the gaming beyond console.
Like a monopoly.
Yes, exactly. They want to own the utilities. So, and that's, I mean, I think the CMA are bang on in identifying that as the threat. So they actually may have gotten a big win for the gaming 10 years down the road by forcing Microsoft to sell off cloud streaming rights. But there's a couple of bets there that might not pay off. If cloud gaming doesn't just become the default thing for gaming, and if somehow a competitor can offer a better service that's more ubiquitous than Microsoft, that doesn't seem likely. But yeah, if cloud just doesn't end up being the default, then yeah, I could see Xbox leaving. Because, so I just looked this up. Xbox as a whole, Microsoft as a whole company, their profit margin is 35%. So if Xbox is under 10, even if they're making money, Microsoft seems like the kind of company that would cut off divisions because they're not earning enough, like Disney does. So if they want Xbox to make 30% profit margin, that is going to need an order of magnitude more subscribers, or like double the price or something like that. So they have to reach a whole new market they haven't been able to talk to yet. And some of that might be waiting on cloud gaming to reach them through like smart TV apps and things like that. So yeah, it's so hard to say because it's down to the chaos of the future. I kind of want them to do well because I want all the studios to keep employing people, but I kind of don't want Microsoft to be the one who holds the keys to the cloud streaming future.
They're the only ones left. Stadia was going to be something like that, but I think it's kind of, if it's going to be anybody, it's going to be xCloud. So
This is kind of unrelated, but didn't Baldur's Gate get like announced with Stadia? Baldur's Gate 3? Like I remember there being an early trailer. It might not have been announced, but it was like in concert with the big Stadia reveal back in 19. I think there was the Mind Flayer trailer released. I think it was going to be a big part of the Stadia slate.
So Charlotte, it's funny you say that, because in those leaked documents that leaked last week, Microsoft called Baldur's Gate 3 a second-run Stadia PC RPG, and that's why they didn't double down on Baldur's Gate. It's because they called it that.
That is so... Woo! God, hindsight. 2020, huh?
Like, ooh, is it Stadia? Stinky game. Nobody wants to play stinky, unpopular Stadia game.
Nobody wants to play a Stadia game.
Hey, speaking of stinky people... Oh, wait, no, hold on. I don't mean that. These are patrons. These are...
You were talking about something else.
I was talking about something else. These are people that contributed to the Inside Games Patreon. These patrons are not stinky, but they have prepaid their Game Pass subs until 2030 because they want to help out Microsoft. Red N003, Zach the Hack, Keto White, Dan Halloran, Dougal Tupo, and Dylan Hiley. Way to help out the lowly MS.
Yeah, we celebrate that, but it's not very imaginative, is it? It's just throwing money. No, my patrons went a step beyond. They committed identity theft so they could sign up to Game Pass as their expired pets. And that's what we like to see. Lenny Eves, Tito 007, Kyle Abbott, Jonathan Lanowski, Brown Sugar, and Aaron Frace, you're all doing the Lord's work, getting Chivos for sweet twinkles upstairs.
Yeah, all 400 million of them to meet that very realistic and necessary threshold.
Every flushed goldfish is a potential customer.